Like a running version of Keanu Reeves, I'm back with a footwear favourite. People loved the first version of the Saucony Endorphin Speed when it released back in 2020, but will the Speed 2 hit the ground running with the same favour? Let's find out. An initial review of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. Hey cats, Ed Midsole Bud here. If you are new here or you're a regular viewer, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also click the bell below for notifications of when I roll out those new videos for you, which is almost every day. It helps the channel out a lot too as well if you give this video a thumbs up like and also share the video with your running buddies. Dankeschön. I picked up the Saucony Speed 2 for old time's sake, to see how this midsole setup holds up in 2021. It took the world by storm when it released last year, and I do have some fond memories actually of the first run after my son had been born. It was the Saucony Endorphin Speed. That was the shoe I reached for when I had that wonderful feeling of becoming a dad. Though new foams are all around us, and the cushion grows. Has this affected our perception of the Power Run PB foam in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2? Just a quick disclaimer, I spent my own earth credits on this one. I waited till another colourway dropped because I didn't like those two initial colourways. This one really hits the spot, like a freshly ground coffee and a piece of Australian crunch from the Yeovil College restaurant. This one's in a size 11 UK or US 12. It comes in at 260 grams. Which is like 3 grams or so lighter than the Speed. So I'm not sure where the saving is because they've added a load of stuff. True to size in length this one, though more on the fit of the shoe in a moment. 155 big ones. Sadly, it doesn't quite live up to the version 1. We'll start with the upper first. So I got about 17 miles into the shoe on my initial runs. I gotta be honest, I found the fit of the upper a little bit flabby. It's less focused and a bit fussy. It's a bit like one of those people that gets to an airport and sort of messes around and doesn't go straight to the check-in desk. They sort of fool around a bit. That's what this is like. Can't stand it when people do that. The heel pull tab and the one on the tongue are just pointless additions. You don't need pull tabs to put this shoe on. You just loosen the laces up, put your foot into it, and then tighten them again. It's that simple. You don't need this stuff on there. That said, I had to cinch the laces extremely tight to get a really good fit in the Speed 2. Not the case in the Speed 1. So I think they've used a different last here, which seems a lot taller, wider perhaps, but for my foot, which is a normal size foot, I just feel like I've got to cinch those laces up too much. And you want good lockdown with this shoe on top of that midsole material, so you can really get the best from it. Going with a slightly thicker Adidas sock did remedy the situation a little bit, but that granted me a bit less toe room. Other than that, it was a reasonable length. I couldn't go a half size up, that would just be too much and probably make the upper even bigger. Going a half size down, not enough toe room, so I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Maybe that updated last just isn't compatible with the Eddbud foot. It's still nice and breathable in the toe box. I mean, in the UK, breathability's cool, you have to look out for it in the summer, but the rest of the time we just want a shoe that isn't going to be too cold, I suppose. The mesh is comfortable on foot, but again, like the Pro 2, this one feels a little bit deconstructed. I don't think the quality's quite there that we had in the first versions of the shoes. It's a little bit off, a little bit like an off-white Nike release. That's what it feels like to me. Part of the heel count is exposed with this Cyberman style piece here. If you're used to running in the Pro, you'll find this quite prominent, guys. The Pro's just as flexible as Morph in a heat wave, or a Cornetto on the beach, I suppose. Didn't feel quite as comfortable as the Speed did, certainly around that heel area. Just feels a little bit exposed and clunky. I think I prefer the setup that was in the Speed original. Doesn't feel anywhere near as kind of restrictive back here. Laces are okay in length, and of course you've got this cool little elastic piece here that you can place them under to stop them flapping around like some sort of halibut. Just feels like the changes in the upper here are changes for change's sake. None of them are really all that beneficial. Just feels like a bit of a step backwards rather than a step forwards here. And I actually found the Pro 2 upper changes far more comfortable and necessary, in fact, to improve the lockdown. Here they've kind of gone the other way. So yeah, I've got some reservations about it. I'll give it a 2.4 out of 3 after my initial runs for the upper.
Midsole now.
So no apparent changes here. It does seem to be exactly the same midsole setup as we saw in the initial version of the shoe. Almost controlling of your foot strike in some ways, at least for around about 10 miles. Then it really started to sing. Although I do feel that the Speed kind of wants you to utilise the full length of the midsole and outsole rather than perhaps land on a mid to forefoot strike. Maybe that's something to do with the speed roll technology, I'm not sure. God, I'll tell you what, I'd really like a bit of Swiss roll right now. Jam one, that would be lovely. It's 8:10 in the evening though, so I think it's probably out of the question. As the miles clocked up, I did feel the midsole start to give a little bit. Not quite as rigid sensation as you get in the Pro or the Pro 2. I don't remember, or at least looking through my notes from last year, having the same issue with the original version of the shoe. That one seemed pretty good straight out the box. With this one I had to break it in a little bit, and once I did, I really got the best out of it. Have they changed the formula perhaps here in the midsole material? Or is it the upper playing tricks on me? Maybe slightly changing the way the foot is applied to the top of the midsole and affecting the transition a little bit maybe. Either way, I didn't find it anywhere near as forgiving or engaging at lower speeds, like above 8 minutes per mile for example. I didn't have those sweet memories that I had of running pretty much any pace in the original Speed. It didn't feel quite the same. Is it due to my feet experiencing other propulsive midsole foams over the last year? There's been loads of nice combinations that I've tested out of recent time, thinking the Rocket X, maybe the Tempo Next Percent from Nike, and the Rebel 2. Not forgetting the Nitro lineup from Puma as well. An embarrassment of riches. Obviously the underfoot foam in the Speed 2 is a little bit denser, while still forgiving, but it doesn't quite have that same pop as you experience in the Rocket X. And it felt like I had to pull up the sides of the upper to really engage my foot with the midsole material. I think perhaps the plate isn't quite as noticeable in the Speed 2 as it is in something like the Rocket X. Certainly at a higher pace perspective anyway. Not once have I felt unstable running in the Speed 2 so far. In fact, all the Endorphin line are really stable for me. Can run at most paces in the Pro, and the Endorphin Trail was a real winner, even on some very uneven terrain. It was serviceable at 5 minutes per kilometre pace, or 8 minutes per mile, but so are lots of other cheaper options that have come out over the last few months. Something like the Under Armour Flow Velocity Wind, for example. But at around 7 minutes per mile pace, the shoe really starts to come alive a bit, and I start to feel some of that magic that I felt in the original version. The zest was there, of 1,000 lemons. The stack? Comfortable, and it certainly promotes a faster cadence and stride lengthening feel. Very much an Endorphin Speed 2 here, rather than a daily shoe. Not sure I'd want to run at slower paces in it for very many miles in a week. Better shoes for that. So the versatility is somewhat more limited this time, I have to be honest. People think I'm crazy saying this, but I actually find the Pro better at slower paces than I do the Speed. So I'm going to give this a 2.6 out of 3 for the midsole, though I think if you have its intended purpose in mind, which is speed, then it actually applies more now in the second version of the shoe than it did the first. Outsole wise, absolutely nothing has changed here in the Speed 2. It's kind of like the main thing I wanted them to change really, looking back at my review from last year. Here's a good outsole, but certainly ruined by the lack of grip in wet conditions. Just a little bit slippery. Certainly if it's been dry and then becomes damp, could be a bit dodgy. Is that down to the high level of exposed midsole foam here in the outsole? Quite possibly. I think it's hard to grade the outsole any higher than I did on my 100-mile review of the Speed last year. I gave it a 2.7 then, and I think that's probably round about right now. Grip's good on most surfaces, serviceable on gravel and grit, but expect some damage if you're going to run around on anything else. Certainly avoid grass, doesn't really work all that well on that. And if you run any half marathons or marathons here in the UK, you know you're probably going to end up running on some grass at some point. Those surfaces crop up on lots of road races here in the UK. And of course, running again in the wet conditions here, it produced some mixed results. So I'll stick with my 2.7 out of 3 for outsole for the Speed 2. Value now. Value-wise, I think we need to compare the Speed 2 to some models released this year. I think last year carbon plate or nylon plate shoes were less plentiful. That isn't the case now in 2021. There's more competition in terms of foam fun. I think the Rocket X provides some stiff competition here. With that carbon plate, I think it just provides a bit more pop, and it's lighter. How is that? Oh yeah, Hoka chose to use a really simple upper. There's no pull tabs or any rubbish on that one. And it's only slightly more expensive than the Speed 2. Coming in at only 15 Earth credits more is the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite. I mean, this thing kind of crushes the Speed 2 really. Gallons more cushion, lighter on foot, and an out-and-out race shoe that you could probably do some training in as well. It's a bit of a no-brainer. So softer, more forgiving examples do appear at much lower prices than the Speed 2. For me, it's more of a 0.5 update rather than a whole number. I think you're probably better off picking up the discounted original version of the shoe this time around. That's your best bet if you really must have this model. I just don't feel that the updates are really an upgrade. Value 155 Earth credits this time round isn't quite there. It's not the shoe's forte anymore. It just isn't quite as versatile to me. I'm not sure I'd want to put this one on to run some easy miles. I wasn't going to do that. And I did last time. Alternatives, I suppose, if you go about an ounce heavier, are the Adios 6 from Adidas. That's a formidable opponent to the Speed 2 and vastly cheaper. It's about £45 less than the Speed 2. I think a bit of streamlining of the midsole perhaps and a better upper lock would have given this shoe a bit more life. I think other brands have caught up a little bit over the last 18 months. As such, I can't really give it the 3 out of 3 that I gave the Speed. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for value. I think it's still a top shoe, but I think there's a whole load of other options now that present perhaps slightly better value. It's just not quite as versatile as the first one. So if I have totted the scores up correctly, that gives us 10.4 out of 12 for the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2 after my initial runs. That's not to say I didn't have some fun running in this shoe. Certainly at faster paces it feels good, but it's not one I'd grab just to do some daily mileage. Doesn't feel anywhere near as comfortable. I think alternatives pretty simple. If you're looking for something cushioned and fun and exciting for your faster pace runs, the Liberate Nitro, and of course the Adios 6 with that wild underfoot grip, and the Light Strike Pro. Let's not forget the light and snappy Hoka Rocket X. Ooh, 3 of those are cheaper than the Speed 2. What are your views and thoughts on the Endorphin Speed 2, guys? Let me know down in the comments. Musical interlude time. My wife's been watching the TV series adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale, and there's music in it that's quite disturbing and dystopian. It reminds me a lot of an album from Radiohead, which I really enjoy. As I've said before, I kind of really enjoy Radiohead's music, even the more experimental stuff. It's always an exciting and engaging listen. You always take something from it. Makes you feel a certain way. It might not be a good way, it might make you feel kind of odd and strange and isolated, but hey, it's okay, it's just an album. I got a cool limited edition version of that. It's like a book, and in front is like a library card with the CD in. What an amazing tune. I love the weird time signature and the wonderful mellow piano. The track really opens up at one point, almost with like jazz style drums. Such subtlety that's missing in a lot of modern music. Feels like you're kind of floating undersea, maybe in a diving bell and the fish are swimming past. Maybe an eel, and you finally discover this underwater world that you never knew was there. Go and check it out, guys. I think you'll enjoy it. It could help you on your long run, perhaps, to take your mind away from the aches and pains. Pyramid Song by Radiohead. Hey, thanks for sticking with me to the very end of today's video, guys. It's always appreciated. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, to hit that subscribe button, and also click the bell below for notifications of when we launch those new videos for you. And it really helps the channel out if you give this video a thumbs up, like, and also share this video with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you